potential barrier for people is confidence, actually. And as you say, it's got to be about, who am I, little old me, to kind of be so bold as to kind of question things, and that's inherent in the industry, I think.
Well, it's inherent in the human condition. You will only perform to the level that your self-concept will allow you to perform. Okay? I've just been coaching one of my clients. She's really good at managing change, doing turnarounds, all that kind of stuff. She's managed 200 million, 600 million pound projects. She can't pick up the phone. Why? Because inside she's got this little voice that's churning away saying, you don't deserve it, you're no good, no one's going to pick up, they won't take you seriously, they're going to think you're an idiot. Why? What evidence is there? Okay? So having a bad self-concept is a starting point. You do not buy from salespeople who project that they are needy, desperate, and skint. Yeah? You might milk them for some free consultancy, but you're probably going to try and get them out as quickly as possible so you can get on with the rest of your day while you're avoiding work somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah?
So what would you say to people that obviously recognise the fact they need to work on their self-concept?
Well, your biggest problem is ego. Ego, 3 points of a triangle describe every dysfunctional relationship you can or will ever have. The persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. Okay? Now, the persecutor jabs a finger in your face or your chest and says, it's your fault. You're such a disappointment. You're a piece of... Okay? The rescuer says, let me do that. Let me show you. And they're very permissive, or they're mollycoddling, or they're interfering. And then you have the victim. Why me? Life's so unfair. All that kind of gubbins. Okay? Now, my favourite philosopher, Bruce Lee, said, when he was asked, Mr. Lee, what's the best way to avoid a punch? He said, be somewhere else. Somewhere else is a really simple place. It was another triangle developed by a guy called A.C. Choi. And you're vulnerable, you're nurturing, and you're assertive. So instead of being a victim, you go vulnerable. I'm so sorry. It's my fault. I understand that you probably won't want to do business with us again after this complete disaster. I fully appreciate that may be the case. Tell me something, Jenny. Is there any way past this? Can you suggest a way that we can get beyond it? Instead of, it's not my fault, it's your fault, you did this, you made me hit you. I mean, how stupid is that?
It's really clever psychology. I think everybody needs to learn it, don't they?
Well, I would recommend people read a book by Jamie Smart called Clarity, and it's all about mindfulness. This is a wonderful exercise. Okay, what I would recommend that you do is you take one of these index cards, like that, yeah? Yep. And you divvy it up into 7 lines, okay? And the Buddhist mantra for happiness goes, never complain about anything, even to yourself, okay? Now, every time you whine, moan, bitch, grumble, complain, even in thought, mark a tally down, okay, on that day. Now, this is a really interesting exercise. When I first did it, I had 27 grumbles that day. Now, actually, apparently that's quite low. I've got one client his lowest for a week was 105. So, yeah. Sorry, that was for one day in the week. But, yeah, the first day was 27. The next day, it went down to 9.
Wow.
Good. So I was a third as miserable.
Okay? Just because you're aware of it.
Exactly. It's about the awareness. The next day went down to 3. I can tell you now, that was a damn good day. I was happy, bouncy. I only grumbled 3 times. The next day, 3. The next day, 3. The next day, 17. The next day, 21. It was the weekend. I was at home. Yeah? Detaching yourself from the emotion and not letting yourself get dragged above the line to that persecutor, rescuer, victim place is really difficult the more emotionally attached you are. Now, most of our attachment is to the past, where we reach back into history and we drag all that negative emotion into the now, and then we re-feel all of that misery, yeah? You listen to a piece of music you were dumped to 27 years ago, and all of a sudden you go, ugh, okay? That's what we call reach back and afterburn. But you don't even need music nowadays, because a lot of us are really quite stupid, and we're perfectly happy to spend our time beating ourselves up. I mean, I've got to be honest, the world is already pretty tough. It doesn't need you, on top of that, giving yourself a hard time. Be your own best friend, another good rule.
Yeah.
Okay? And Don't waste time with people who aren't going to buy. Learn to get to know early. The rule, go for the no. Learn to plant your feet. But when you're in scarcity, when your mentality is, I have to get everything in because if I don't, I'll starve or I'll lose my job, I'll get fired, then you chase everything. Madness. If you have a full pipeline, you can make choices.
That's a really good note to finish on, actually. Be your best friend.
And your own best friend.
And just finally, Marcus, how can people contact you if they've resonated with what you've said?
I must have put a few off by now, but well, you can go to my Twitter page, my Twitter, which is _Inquisitor, capital T in the and capital I in Inquisitor. You probably don't need it, but I'm not very technical. You can put my name into Google, Marcus, Marcus, Cauchi, Cauchi, and type in video next to it. I've got an entire video channel dedicated to upsetting people in the media about why they're leaving money on the table. And the other thing is, why not just invite me in to speak to your team? Because I'll give them a proper wake-up call, and they will never have the opportunity to make these excuses ever again. I'm too busy to prospect. Rubbish. No one's buying. What you really mean is no one's buying from you. In the UK economy in 2010, 1.3 trillion pounds passed through it. So there was a lot of people apparently then who weren't buying. But there were a fair number of people like you and I who were making money at that point.
Marcus, I have to reiterate that to everyone listening and watching, because when you came into my life, I think you completely changed it, and you made me so much more aware and confident and gave me the skills. So
you already had that. What you didn't know was you had permission to do it, because lots of people had told you can't, this isn't the way we do it. I loved working with you because you just took the stuff. You remember when you had that call through from procurement and they were trying to stiff you 6 months before the end of the contract? 10 minutes later, before I'd even rolled my cigarette and left the car park, you'd already closed them on £600,000. Frankly, it was a pleasure. So working with people like you is another thing I'd like to do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, honestly. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new.